Playing GTA was always fun, but what about making a GTA scene and walking inside it? So today we are going to make this scene from scratch and we will cover everything in detail. We are going to model, texture, UV edit and light up the entire scene. And by the way, I will put all the assets and materials that I use in this project for you to download, so you can follow the exact same thing along. So without any further ado, let's get this going. First of all, we start with our world. So go to the render panel, set the render engine on cycles and device on GPU compute. Then expand the timeline and switch it into shader editor. Set it on board. You can press N to close the side menu. Now press Shift A and search for environment texture. We are going to use an HDRI and I'm going to put the link to download it in the description. After you have downloaded the HDRI, click on Open to find the HDRI on your PC. Then plug the environment texture into the background node. Now switch into render view. Then I realized if we rotate the HDRI on the Z-axis by 180 degrees, we will get a better lighting. So with the environment texture selected, press Ctrl T to use the Node Wrangler add-on and set the Z rotation on 180. This is going to make sense later. Now we can switch back into solid mode. Then press Shift A and in the mesh add a plane. Press N to open the side menu, make sure you are in the item. Then set the dimension X on 6.3 and Y on 20.2. Press F2 and rename it to ground plane main. Add another plane, set the dimension X on 1.12 and Y on 20.2. Rename it to ground plane right. And move it to the right side of the main ground plane. Again add another plane. Dimension X on 1.34 and Y on 20.2. Rename it to ground plane left. Then move it to the left side like so. Put it above the main ground plane. Press G then Z and slightly move it up. That's enough. Then with it selected, press Tab to go into edit mode. Let me have a better look. Press A to select everything if not already. Then press E to extrude it up a little bit. You can hold down the Shift key to be more precise. Press Tab again to jump back into object mode. Something like that looks nice. Now to stay organized, select all of them. Press M to move them to a new collection and call it ground planes. Now let's start modeling our walls. So press Shift A to add another plane. Dimension X on 11 and Y on 4.75. Press R then X and type down 90. Again press R then Z and again 90. Then move it to the right and adjust it like so. After that press G then Z to move it up and rename it to right wall. With it selected, go into edit mode, press Ctrl R to add a horizontal edge loop somewhere around here. Now select the edge selection tool and select this new edge that we added. Press E then X to extrude it on the X-axis like so. Press E again to extrude it diagonally like this. Again press E then Z to extrude it up. Again E then X to extrude it for the last time. Then you can choose the face selection tool, select this face, press X to remove the faces because we don't need that anymore. Now select this edge, press Ctrl B to bevel it. Scroll forward to increase the segments, something like that looks nice. Then select this edge to give it the same bevel. And finally give the same bevel to this edge. Now press Ctrl R to add a vertical edge loop here. Select this face, press E then X to extrude it like so. Then select this edge, press Ctrl B to bevel. And this time scroll backward to decrease the segments. I guess 4 is enough. And also give this edge the same bevel. Then select this face and extrude it on the X-axis a little bit like this. Now we can press tab again to jump back into object mode. Then one thing that in GTA was sick on Earth was the gravity walls. So I found a pretty decent one and I put the link to download it in the description. After you have downloaded it, go to File, Import GLB and find the 3D model on your PC. Press R, Z and -90. Then move it up and move it to the left side of the main ground plane. If we go into rendered view, we can take a look at it and it will look really nice. Press F2 and rename it to gravity wall. Now let's add some back walls. So obviously add a plane, dimension X on 9.15 and Y on 3.45. Press R, then X and 90 and move it to this end of the gravity wall. And don't forget to move it up. Of course, this back wall is not supposed to be in the final render, but let's add some details to it. So with it selected, go into edit mode, select this edge, press E, then Y to extrude it like so. Then press E, Z to extrude it up. Again press E, then Y and extrude it for the last time, adding some details to this back wall. Then press Ctrl R to add a loop cut. Scroll forward to make it 2 and right click to drop it. Now hold down the Alt key and click on this edge to make a loop select. If you press G twice, you can slide the edge loop and move it closer to the middle of the wall. Also do the same thing with the other edge loop. Select this face and extrude it on the Y-axis a little bit. Now we can go back into object mode. Press F2 and rename it to back wall. Now with it selected, press Shift D to make a duplicate and place it somewhere around here. Now we can select all the walls that we added, press M to move them to a new collection and call it walls. So the modeling part is almost done. Now in order to save some time, I put the link to download the light in the description. So after you have downloaded and imported the model, it comes as 2 different objects, the light and the light box. So select the light, then hold down the Shift key and select the box as the last object. Press Ctrl P and choose Object, Keep Transform. Now if you select the box and move it, the light is parented to the box and moves alongside with it. Now press numpad 7 to go into top view. Go into wireframe mode and place the light somewhere around here. Make sure both the light and the box are selected. Press Shift D to duplicate and move them a little bit like so on the Y-axis. Duplicate them once more and move it like so. So if we go into rendered view to take a look, you can see that they make a pretty good lighting system. And now we can start to add the materials. I put the link to download all the materials that I used in this project in the description. So let's start with the main ground plane. So select it, expand the shader editor, switch it to object, and make a new material. And in the material folder that you will download, we want to use this old road material. So select the principal BSDF and press Shift Ctrl T to use the Node Wrangler add-on feature. Navigate to the old road material folder. Press A to select all of them and click on Principal Texture Setup. Now in the viewport, if you press the forward/ key, you can isolate the selected object, which is our main ground plane, and we can have a better look at it. Then go into UV editing tab. Again here isolate the main ground plane and you can go into rendered view to take a better look. And make sure you are in the edit mode. Then in the UV editing tab, scroll backward to take a better look. And press A to select all the vertices. Press S, then Y and type down 3. Now go back into layout. And in the shader editor, set the normal map strength on 2 because 1 is just too low. Then on the displacement node, set the mid-level on 0 and a scale on 0.025. This is now much better. Add a color ramp on the base color. Drag the black slider to the right a little bit to add some contrast. You can hold down the Shift key to be more precise. And since in the UV editing tab we scaled the UV island by 3, on the mapping node set all the scale axes on 3 so that it will give us the best result. As you can see, the scale is totally adjusted and we don't have any stretching. So we are done with the main ground plane, and now we can press the forward/key to exit the isolation mode. Select the right ground plane and isolate it. Make a new material for it. For this one, we are going to use this T-set stairs material. So open the folder and drag all the maps into the shader editor. The base color, the roughness metallic, and the normal map. So since we have dragged the materials into the shader editor manually, we have to adjust the color space. So for the base color, the color space should be set on sRGB, and for the rest of the maps, it should be set on non-color, and that is pretty important. Now plug the base color into the base color on the principal BSDF, the roughness into the roughness. And of course it needs some adjustments which we are going to cover within a few seconds. Then for the normal, add a normal map and plug it into the normal. Now make sure one of the maps is selected. Press Ctrl T to use the Node Wrangler add-on. Plug the mapping node into other maps as well. Then to stay neat, hold down the Shift key and the right click and drag across the connection lines to join them together. Now jump into the UV editing tab. If you still have the main ground plane isolated, press the forward/key to exit the isolation mode and make sure you are in the objects mode. Select the right ground plane and isolate it. With it selected, go into edit mode and for a better look, switch into rendered view. Then in the UV editing tab, press A to make sure everything is selected. Press S then Y to scale it up on the Y axis. Then press S, X to scale it down on the X axis. And make sure you don't have any stretching or just playing around with the scale of the Y and the X axis. After that, we can go back to layout. And in the shader editor, add a separate color node. Set it on the normal map. Add a combined color node and place it after the separate color. The red is already plugged in. Plug the green into the green and blue into the blue. Then on the green channel, add an invert color node. On the normal map, set the strength on 0.85. Of course, these adjustments that I'm making right now are not that necessary, but since I have done it before, I said it wouldn't be bad to tell you my exact workflow. There it goes. Duplicate this separate color node and place it on the roughness map. Make sure the green channel is plugged into the roughness input. Then on the green channel, add a gamma node to control the fall off and set the value on 0.7. Now we can plug the blue channel into the metallic input, since this map includes both the roughness and the metallic map. Now add a mix shader and place it after the principal BSDF. Make sure the principal is plugged into the second shader input. Then plug the red channel of the separate color into the factor on the mix shader. Then add a gamma node on the red channel. And set the value on 0.93. And for the first shader input, we can add a diffuse node and switch the color to the black. Done. Now exit the isolation mode, select the left ground plane and isolate it. Make a new material. For this one, we are going to use this pavement 03 texture. So select the principal BSDF, press Shift Ctrl T and navigate to the pavement texture folder. Press A to select everything and import it. Everything is set up except for on the displacement node, set the scale on 0.04. Then jump into the UV editing tab. Make sure the left ground plane is isolated. And in the edit mode, choose the face selection tool. Select this face on top. And in the UV editing tab, press A to select everything. Press S then Y to scale it up on the Y axis. Then scale it down on the X axis until it feels reasonable. Then select this face on the side. In the UV editing tab, press A to select everything, and as you can see, it doesn't seem to be fine. So to fix that, press U and choose minimum stretch. Now we can scale it up on the Y axis. Then if we move it a little bit and scale it down on the X axis a little bit until it looks reasonable. Now go back to layout. Exit the isolation mode, select the back wall, make a new material for it. And we are going to use this one, pavement texture V1. So select the principal BSDF, press Shift Ctrl T and navigate to the mentioned folder. Select everything and import. So it seems fine, but as you can see, we have some stretching somewhere around here. Of course, this part won't be visible, but it wouldn't be bad to learn how to add seams. So in the parts that we are not supposed to see, somewhere like this, we can add seams. So go to the UV editing tab, make sure the back wall is isolated. Choose the edge selection tool and select these edges by holding down the Shift key. Now press U and choose Mark Seam. As you can see, the selected edges have changed their color. Now press A to select everything, press U, Unwrap and choose Conform All. And in the UV editing tab, you can press A to select everything and press S to scale it up, like so, until we get a better result. I guess this is fine, yeah. Now we can make the material of the right wall, and we are going to use two different materials. So select it and isolate it. Go into edit mode, and one thing that I just realized, since we extruded this face, we have the front side of the wall empty. So choose the edge selection tool and select these 4 edges. Press F to fill. And there it goes. So now select these 2 faces and go to the material panel. Make a new material and rename it to Garage Door. And click on Assign. Now in the viewport, press Ctrl I to invert the selection. Make a new material and rename it to Garage. And click on Assign. Now go into object mode and make sure the garage material is selected. Jump back into layout, select the principal BSDF. For the garage, we are going to use the gravel embedded concrete. So press Shift Ctrl T and navigate to that folder. Select everything and import. Everything is set up, we just need to, on the displacement node, set the scale on 0.01. That was just too much. Now we can go to the UV editing tab and isolate the right wall. Make sure you are in the edit mode. Select this edge, press X and dissolve edges. This will prevent some problems. Select this big face, press U, Unwrap, Conform All. In the UV editing tab, select everything, press S, then 10. If you want a smaller gravels, you can again scale it by 2, which I think will look better. Now for these bottom faces, choose the edge selection tool, hold down the Alt key and click on this edge to make a loop select. Press X, dissolve edges. Then select these bottom faces. Press U, Unwrap, Conform All. A to select everything, press S, then 10. You can again scale them by 2 to have a smaller gravel. Also do the same thing with the top faces. Now select this big face over here. U, Unwrap, Conform All. Scale it up like the previous ones. Then select the remaining faces and give them the same UV adjustments. Done. Now select the garage door material. For this one, we are not going to add PBR textures, and instead we are going to make the entire material. So we can go to layout and in the shader editor, add a noise texture. Then after that, add a Voronoi texture. Plug the color on the noise texture into the vector on the Voronoi texture. Then plug the distance into the base color. Add a color ramp on the Voronoi texture. Slightly drag the white slider to the left. Add a new slider. For the color, the hex code is 818181FF. Then drag the black slider to the right slightly. The hex code is A6A6A6FF. Now on the noise texture, set the scale on 50, detail on 15, and roughness on 0.925. Voronoi texture is fine, but still we are not done with the base color, and we will get to it. Now add a wave texture, set it on Y. Press Ctrl T to use the node wrangler, and set the Y rotation on 90. Select all 3 of them, press Shift D to duplicate. Put it below the first ones. On the first wave texture, set the scale on 25. and set the scale of the second one on 50. Now to join them together, add a mix color. Plug the color output of the first wave into the factor and the B input. Plug the color of the second wave into the A input. After the phased wave, join the lines together and add a color ramp. Drag the white slider to the left, then drag the black slider slightly to the right. Add a bump node after the mix color. Plug it into the normal and plug the mix color into the height on the bump node. And there it goes, you can already see the effect, but we are going to make it better. Set the strength of the bump node on 0.5. Add a color ramp after the mix color. Move the white slider slightly to the left and also decrease its color value a little bit, like that. Then drag the black slider to the right as well. Add a displacement node and set the scale of it on 0.02. Plug it into the displacement on the material output. Then plug the last color ramp into the height on the displacement node. Now add a mix color after the color ramp of the Voronoi texture and switch it into multiply. Plug the last color ramp into the B input and set the factor on 0.95. We are almost done, but we can also use this Voronoi texture as the roughness. Add a color ramp on the roughness. For the black slider, enter the hex code 919191FF. Finally increase the metallic to 0.75. And this is the last setup. Now exit the isolation mode, select the duplicated back wall, shift select the first one, press Ctrl L, choose link material. And if you want, you can UV unwrap this one and you know how it works. So let me switch into solid mode, then select the right wall and go to the modifiers panel. And in the generate, add an array modifier. Set the factor X on -0.999. I realize this is the best number for us. Then increase the count on 5. Go to wireframe mode and numpad 7 to go into top view. Select all the lights with their boxes. Press M to move them to a new collection and call it tube light. Now if we right click on the light collection and choose select objects, we can select all the objects in the collection at the same time. So with them selected, press Shift D to duplicate and move them to the new right walls that we added using the array modifier. Now if we go into rendered view, we have made a pretty decent lighting system. Now select the main ground plane, go to the modifiers panel and give it the array modifier. Set the factor X on 0 and factor Y on -1 and set the count on 3. Select the right ground plane, shift select the left ground plane and then select the main ground plane as the last object. Open the array modifier drop down menu and choose copy to selected and there it goes. Then to cover this area, duplicate the graffiti wall. Press G then Y and move it like so. Duplicate it once more, press R, Z and type down -90 and simply adjust it in place. And for this part, duplicate the right wall and for the duplicated one, remove the array modifier and move it to the other side of the alley and place it like so. We actually don't need to cover this empty area, but just in case, select the duplicated right wall, go into edit mode, make sure the edge selection tool is selected, hold down the Alt key and click on this edge to select this line of edges. Press Shift D to duplicate, press P to separate it by selection. Now go to object mode, select the separated part and go into edit mode. Press A to select everything and choose the spin tool. Go into top view somewhere around here. When the two walls reach each other, hold down the Shift key and right click over here to bring the 3D cursor over here. Now with the spin tool, you can rotate it like so to connect them together. And if we drag it a little back, there it goes. Then right click to shade auto smooth. Now it is really fine. And if we go into rendered view, it has the door material. So in the material panel, remove the garage door material. Then if you like, you can go to UV editing tab, press A to select everything, U unwrap conformal. Here select everything S10. Seems fine. Of course there's an intersection here over here, which is not going to make any problem because this part won't be seen in the final render. But if you want to prevent that when you are using the spin tool, you can be more precise. So we have almost gone through the most important parts, and now one important factor to make a scene realistic is not to leave the scene empty. So we are going to add some objects that can give our scene a sense of life and realism. So I put the link to download the file that I use in the description. It comes as a zip file and you need to extract it. So go to File, Import GLB. Let's first add the main ingredient, which is the Supra. And before touching anything, as you can see, it includes so many different parts. So let's move it aside, press Shift S and choose Cursor to select it. Then Shift A in the empty, add a cube. Move it up, scale it down on the Z-axis, scale it up on the Y-axis, and make it as big as the car. Now select the entire car and the cube. And as you can see, the cube is highlighted, which means it is the active object, which is exactly what we want. So now we can press Ctrl P and choose Object Cube Transform. Now if we move the empty, it controls the entire car, which makes it so easy for us. Select all the parts and move them to a new collection, call it Supra. Now we can place the car to where we want. And I guess we have to move it up a little bit. And if we take a look, it will be insane, and it is pretty realistic. Now let's add some trash cans. So File, Import GLB. Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A, add the cube empty, and scale it as big as a trash can. And simply parent it to the cube. Then move it to a new collection. And place it to where you like it to be. And I guess we have to scale it down. Okay, it looks really fine. This time, add an electrical power line. We can make some duplicates and adjust them like so. Yeah, they look really nice. And I suggest to add some lights somewhere around here above this graffiti wall, because I think this part of the car is just too dark. But it is totally optional, and you can add as much objects as you like. Now you have all the assets that you need and you can spread them the way you like. So see you next time.